We've been getting some great questions from you guys, so if you have a topic you want us to cover on an upcoming video, just be sure to click that subscribe button and then put a question in the comments below and we'll see if we can get it into one of our upcoming videos. In today's video, we're going to cover a question about, hey, is my acid reflux and my gallbladder problems, are those all connected? Let's jump in.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
So over on our video for 6 steps if you've lost your gallbladder, Mark says, I developed reflux about the time when my gallbladder shut down. Is it related? So Mark, when you look at this diagram, you'll see that, I don't know, it's hard to say really, and just keep in mind, Mark, that I'm not giving you advice on what you should do here in this scenario because I don't know your scenario. And when we get done here, you can see that there's going to be a variety of issues that can create this problem. So for anybody watching, just know that I'm not giving you advice. You really want to do that whole talk to your doctor thing about getting medical advice. I'm just here to give you some insights on, that can maybe help you ask better questions. Okay, so when we're looking at acid reflux, what's important to understand is that at the bottom of the esophagus here is what's called a lower esophageal sphincter, or an LES valve. And basically its job is to open up so food can come in. We ate it, it was delicious, yummy, yummy. It comes in, and then this valve, its job is to close so that the food does not come back up and give us reflux and make us burn and make us sad. So the problem is this valve is triggered by stomach acid. So if someone doesn't have enough stomach acid to really acidify their food so that it can be broken down properly, they also won't have enough stomach acid to trigger that LES valve to close correctly. So if they just have a small amount of acid, but it's not enough to trigger that valve to close, well, that acid is coming back up and it's going to burn, and then you're going to go, oh wow, I didn't even know I knew that cuss word, because that really hurts a whole lot. So that's a problem that we need to understand when we're looking at acid reflux, is the LES valve closing correctly? And in most cases, it's not closing correctly because the person is not making enough stomach acid to trigger that valve to close. Now, it's also possible for maybe somebody has some type of bacterial overgrowth. Maybe there's an H. pylori situation going on, and the waste from that bacteria can be alkaline, and maybe there's alkaline waste that's neutralizing the acids that the person is making. So there's a variety of issues that can make the stomach not acidic enough to trigger that valve to close. Also, a person could have a hiatal hernia where this stomach is kind of pulled up into the diaphragm a little bit, and that LES valve is a little bit jacked up and it's restricting its ability to close correctly. So that can be a possibility. But in most of these issues, we're looking at this hypochlorhydria issue, which is a lack of stomach acid or not making enough stomach acid. So let's see how this gallbladder can be related to this problem. So when we want to look at, is my reflux, my stupid gallbladder's fault or not, we really want to look at this function here of the gallbladder. So the liver up here makes this soapy substance called bile, and the bile helps us emulsify or break down our dietary fats so that we can access things like fat-soluble vitamins, and the body can use those dietary fats, and it helps us digest our food correctly. So it's important stuff. But the bile comes down here from the liver, and then it's stored in the gallbladder. So the gallbladder's job is to store that bile and also to concentrate the bile. It concentrates that bile so that a small amount can be more effective and help us digest our food a little bit better. And what happens is when we eat food and then our stomach makes hydrochloric acid so we can acidify that food and start the breakdown process. And then once it's acidified correctly, it will leave the stomach and come down here into the duodenum. Some people say duodenum. I like to say duodenum. And when the acidic food comes in here into the duodenum, that's when the gallbladder will squirt this alkaline bile down here through this biliary duct, and that alkaline bile is then going to meet the acidic product that left the stomach, and when those two pHs collide, it creates this sizzle. And the bile helps us neutralize those acids, and that sizzle helps us bust that food apart and get all the minerals and all the nutrients out of that food. That's how we truly break down the food into elemental nutrients so the body can use those nutrients. So the problem is that for a wide variety of reasons, a person's bile can become too thick and sticky to flow correctly. So then it won't flow down here to help us neutralize those acids that leave the stomach. And then if those acids are not neutralized, they can continue to move through the intestinal tract, and those acids are made to break down protein. Well, guess what your intestinal tract is made of? It's protein. So if those acids are moving through there, the body's going to be like, hey, I don't want you to digest a whole through my intestinal tract. So it brings all the water it can there to cool it down, and then it rushes out of the system, and then it lifts us off the toilet like a rocket when we have crazy diarrhea. So that can create some problems where we're not really assimilating all of our nutrients in that food because it's screaming through the system too quickly. So that bile can be important just to help us neutralize those acids. But if the bile isn't flowing correctly and helping us create that sizzle where the acid is meeting the alkaline, then it's hard to get all of the minerals and nutrients out of the food that we're eating. So here we see a situation where maybe the gallbladder is not working correctly because the bile is not flowing correctly. And that doesn't mean that it's the gallbladder's fault, really. There's a lot of things in our life today that can thicken up our bile so that it won't flow correctly. And then the gallbladder is just doing its job. Hey, I'm just doing my job. I'm just concentrating this bile here. But if the bile's not flowing, it will continue to concentrate until it concentrates into sludge or even into stones. So we need to know, does the bile have the ability to neutralize this acid that's leaving the stomach, or has bile become too thick and sticky and there's just sludge in there, or maybe even stones? And we'll put a link to our video in the description below for what causes poor bile flow and gallbladder sludge, so you can get an idea of the things in our life that are really common that can really thicken up this bile and create some trouble. So what we want to know is, does the lack of bile have the ability to create these HCl production issues? And to make hydrochloric acid, the body needs minerals and resources to be able to make hydrochloric acid. So we'll put a link in the description below for our video on why can't my body make hydrochloric acid. But you'll see that when there's not enough minerals there, the body doesn't have the ability to produce that hydrochloric acid. Now, there's a lot of other reasons that can cause the body not to be able to make enough hydrochloric acid, and that video will kind of walk you through figuring out maybe if there's other issues going on with you that have restricted your body's ability to make hydrochloric acid. But it's really common that when one of these sides of digestion, either the acid side or the alkaline bile side, when one of them malfunctions, it can cause the other to malfunction. Because remember, this gallbladder is being called on when this acid product leaves the stomach and comes down here into the duodenum. So if this food is not being acidified, then it's not acidic enough to trigger that gallbladder to drop the bile down. So if the gallbladder is continuing to concentrate this and it's not coming down, it might not be the gallbladder's fault, it might be the lack of stomach acid's fault, because this acid is what triggers this to move in the first place. So you can see that without enough bile, you can't really neutralize the acids that leave the stomach and get all the nutrients and minerals out of the food, and then maybe the body won't have enough minerals and nutrients to make that hydrochloric acid. But if a person doesn't have enough hydrochloric acid and there's not enough acidic stuff signaling the gallbladder to come down, then that can cause problems for the gallbladder too. So we don't always get to know what broke first, but we know that when one breaks, that over time it can cause problems for the other. And a lot of people are going to want to say, oh, well, you know, sometimes this can be caused by bile reflux. And you hear a lot about bile reflux gastritis, and they're saying that, well, this bile is coming back up here. It's refluxing back up in here into the stomach, and it's probably because you had too much stomach acid. So this bile's coming in there to neutralize those acids. You shouldn't have that much acid in your stomach. We got medications for that. So they'll want to say that this is coming back up here because it's neutralizing those acids, but that doesn't make sense to me when you look at how the body wants to function and how proper digestion works. So what we see is that here there's this pyloric sphincter at the bottom here, and this opens and closes and lets food come out. But then when this acidic product here, when it gets acidic enough in the duodenum, that triggers this pyloric sphincter to close so that it doesn't reflux back up into the stomach. And I got a whole bunch of links down in the description below for research that will help you understand how all of this function works, and you can dig deeper into that if you want to. But this doesn't always get triggered if this is not acidic enough to trigger that pyloric valve to close. And then if bile's coming down here, but this isn't acidic enough, this will stay open and that bile can reflux right back in there. It can neutralize the acids in the stomach so that the stomach can't acidify hardly at all maybe. And then maybe we can create some gastritis issues that can come from this lack of stomach acid and other issues. I have a video in the description below about a different viewpoint on gastritis that might give you more insights if you're dealing with that situation. So okay, so what do I do? So let's look at some possible steps, because I don't know what steps are appropriate for you, because you can see there's a variety of issues that can cause either one of these problems. But the first thing that we want to know is bile flowing correctly? Is it coming down, or has it become too thick and sticky to flow correctly? If it has, we need to take steps to thin it out so that it can flow and then we can have both sides of digestion working correctly. Another thing is, has the gallbladder already been removed? If it's already been removed, a person can still have bile flowing down here from the liver, but it's not being stored, so you don't get that bolus of bile that comes down once the acidic product leaves there. So sometimes it's not enough bile to really neutralize those acids. Some people need to use ox bile to help neutralize those acids, and some people, when they have their gallbladder removed, they just do fine. Everything works okay because it seems that enough bile is still flowing down here. It kind of trickles down all the time, but enough is coming into the intestinal tract to help it neutralize those acids and help us digest our food well enough. But a lot of people need to supplement with ox bile. It's really common to make a lot of mistakes when supplementing with ox bile, especially with the timing. Most people seem to be doing it the wrong way. So I'm going to put a link in the description below for our video on how to avoid ox bile mistakes. So if you've lost your gallbladder, that can be an important piece of information to you. That can help you understand how to use it in a way that's going to simulate proper digestion, the way that the body would want to digest food. But the next thing we need to look at is the stomach acidifying correctly, because if it's not acidic enough, or maybe there's something in there neutralizing the acids, then we're going to have that reflux problem. But the steps that a lot of people take to fix reflux are to help the stomach acidify correctly. But if you acidify the stomach enough to trigger this LES valve to close, but the gallbladder's gone and there's not enough bile to neutralize these acids that are now going to leave here, then that can really create some chronic diarrhea problems. So you want to make sure, if you're going to look into steps to acidify the stomach correctly and you've lost your gallbladder, you really want to understand how to use ox bile the right way so that you can help neutralize those acids. But you can see that when it comes to digestion, everything really is connected. And everything, both sides really do need to work correctly for us to really properly digest our food. And when one side goes wrong, it can make the other side go wrong too. So it's hard to know really what caused what, but yeah, they can really be connected. Now, if everything that I just said just confused you more, then we have a totally free digestion course that can walk you through which aspects of digestion are not working correctly, and if so, what steps can I take to improve those. And we'll put the link to that totally free course in the description below the video so you can check that out. But if you want to dig a little bit deeper right now, what we want to look at are these things right here. So jump over right now and check out our video on 10 signs of poor bile flow so you can see if that might be a problem for you. And check out our other video on 10 signs of low stomach acid so you can see which side may be creating the problem in the first place. Let us know how it goes.